And I now give the floor to the representative of the United Arab Emirates.
Mr. President, at the outset, I would like to thank you, Minister Borg, for presiding over this important meeting. I would also like to thank High Representative Borrell for joining us today. Almost 25 years ago, hundreds of Emirati troops deployed to Kosovo to support stabilization efforts there. This initiative complemented the role of the United Nations, the European Union, and other international partners to ensure post-conflict recovery in the Balkans. That deployment illustrates something that I want to stress today. The United Arab Emirates and the EU may not be direct neighbors, but we have many neighbors in common, and our mutual challenges must be addressed collectively. This idea could not be more relevant today. The relationship between the EU and the United Nations is based on a common commitment to multilateralism, the rule of law, and support for the most vulnerable. Today, I would like to address some of the global challenges where cooperation exists and where it could deepen. These include scaling up climate ambition, countering extremism, empowering women and girls, addressing the risks of nuclear proliferation, and promoting peaceful and inclusive solutions to crises around the world. In a world marked by growing fragmentation, the EU's emphasis on connectivity, on establishing strong global trade partnerships, on digital transformation, and on standard setting to promote scientific and technological progress resonates deeply with the UAE. But we recognize that the EU is much more than that. It is also a key geopolitical actor whose commitment to playing a constructive role on so many issues on this Council's agenda we commend. As the war in Ukraine continues, we must redouble efforts to bring it to a just end. We must also ensure that other crises are not ignored, and we welcome the EU's commitment in that regard. However, that needs to be visible in concerted action, not only in word, but in deed. Working with partners in other regions as well. In our region, peace and stability for Libya, Yemen, Syria, Palestine, and Israel must also be achieved, not to mention 9 open conflicts in the African continent. With this in mind, I would like to touch on 3 specific areas of common concern. First, addressing security risks remains key to stability and prosperity. This autumn, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen acknowledged in Manama that it took the EU too long to understand the impact of certain security risks beyond the Middle East. As she said, the world needs a stronger security architecture against the spread of chaos. We could not agree more. The idea that chaos, having gained a foothold somewhere, will not have a ripple effect somewhere else is a mirage. In the end, it will. Emerging risks to our collective stability, such as food insecurity, tech-enabled extremist incitement, and nuclear saber-rattling, all require international cooperation. This also requires addressing protracted conflicts that continue to negatively impact the lives of millions of civilians. In a moment of unprecedented displacement from Syria to the Sahel, there needs to be a change of paradigm in the way we support conflict resolution efforts and manage the flow of those fleeing instability. Promoting sustainable peace and economic opportunities in countries of origin should be a key element in addressing this issue, alongside continued compassion for those most in need. Second, supporting those in need or at risk is a shared priority and should be recognized as that. Together, the UN, the EU, and the UAE have a strong commitment to support those affected by war and natural disasters. This entails ensuring that civilians from Afghanistan to Yemen to Syria receive vital, life-saving aid based on needs and not on politics. The EU is one of the UN's largest donors, providing critical financial and political support to frontline humanitarian efforts. The UAE is host to the world's largest humanitarian hub at the International Humanitarian City, where a pre-positioned bilateral and international assistance, including from the EU, are sent where it's most needed. Most recently, nearly 90 planes full of emergency aid from the UAE were dispatched in response to the devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. The UAE is also proud to work with the UN and EU to support women and girls. Without women's empowerment, security and stability will not be sustained. As we witness the reversal of women and girls' rights in almost every region around the world, promoting the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in all aspects of public life is key. Third, scaling up climate ambition is an urgent task. Climate mitigation and adaptation efforts must go hand in hand, and the EU is an essential partner to achieve this objective. That work is important to both ensuring sustainable development, especially for developing countries most vulnerable to climate change, as well as to maintaining international peace and security. As host of COP28, the UAE is committed to keeping alive the 1.5-degree global climate target. Climate change is an existential crisis, and we cannot simply confine the 1.5 goal to the dustbin of history. At the same time, we also recognize the importance of securing financing for climate adaptation for the global south, particularly with the increasing frequency and devastation of extreme weather events. Mr. President, the European project was initiated by countries that had just fought a terrible war. They came together with the dedicated ambition to set up a common market for coal and steel. Fast forward 70 years, and they became a union that contributes effectively to so many areas critical for international peace and security. From the perspective of the Gulf today, and indeed the Arab world, this journey from confidence building to political integration and a common agenda remains an inspiring example. We hope we can all reach for that inspiration again today in pursuit of a new peace. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Arab Emirates for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President, for convening us today for this important discussion, and I join others in thanking High Representative for his briefing. It is good to see you in person, Your Excellency. This has indeed, as we've heard, been a challenging year for the multilateral system. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine saw the return of war to Europe. The knock-on effects have made it harder to tackle the most pressing global challenges, exacerbated food insecurity, and prolonged the damage wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic. In this challenging context, we welcome the positive role played by the EU and other regional organisations in championing multilateralism and supporting the Security Council on international peace and security. And I'd like to highlight 3 areas in particular. First, we recognise the EU's efforts to address global challenges. The UK is proud of our work alongside the EU to establish energy transition partnerships. The ETP has helped coal-dependent emerging economies make a just energy transition by building on the model pioneered at COP26. And as we've just heard from UAE, we look forward to continuing this work through COP28. We also welcome the EU's considerable support for the UN's Education Cannot Wait Fund. As co-founder of the fund, the UK values this support to high-quality education in emergencies. Second, we recognise the EU's contribution to the UN's work. This includes cooperation with UN peace operations and peace building, for example, in Mali and Somalia, and efforts to promote regional stability. We expect the EU partnership mission to Niger will play a vital role in supporting stability in the Sahel, as you described, Your Excellency. In Europe, we strongly support the EU's role upholding peace and security in the Western Balkans. This includes through the EU-facilitated Serbia-Kosovo dialogue and the ongoing important role of EUFOR. Finally, the UK welcomes the EU's support for Ukraine. The EU has given vital humanitarian assistance and helped tackle global food insecurity by supporting the Black Sea grain deal. As we map out Ukraine's reconstruction, we look forward to working with the EU on preparations for the 2023 Ukraine Recovery Conference hosted by the UK and Ukraine in London this June. President, the role of the EU in tackling global challenges and assisting the UN's work encapsulates, in these times of crisis, the need for responsible multilateralism. We need an engaged role for regional organisations to address the problems we face and to uphold the principles of the UN Charter. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom.